right, good afternoon. It's a lot different sitting up here. I can see everybody. So thank you very much. And we're just going to get right to this. I think it's phenomenal that Worth has a panel this afternoon with actual council presidents on it. We've heard a lot today around cities and what cities have been doing and all the things that are going on, but it's awesome to actually have two council presidents who are here and that are responsible for getting stuff done. We actually say something else, but I'm gonna stick with stuff for right now. And so we're joined today by with Council President McIver from the city of Newark, New Jersey. She represents the Central Ward, which I find is unique because you go by neighborhoods and we go by ward numbers. And then we also have Council President Blaine Griffin, who I am his favorite constituent. He's my favorite council person because he's my councilman from the city of Cleveland, and he represents Ward 6. And so their bios you can find on their websites. We want to get into the discussion because 20 minutes is not a lot of time to talk about your cities, and we each could talk about our own cities for a long time. So I'm going to start by throwing out like a softball question. Can you tell us something about each of your cities? What do you love about your city? What makes your city so dynamic? What makes your city unique? And why should anybody sitting in the audience care about Cleveland? We all know why you should care about Cleveland. And why should you care about Newark? And we all know why you should care about Newark. So we'll start with you, Council President McIver.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much, Valarie, for the question. So what is unique about Newark? The people. Right? I think our perseverance, our dedication to the city definitely is what makes Newark Newark. And I love it. I've been there all my life. I was born and raised in Newark, and I truly believe that is what the gem of the city is the great people of Newark, and even new people who are coming into the city as it becomes more and more diverse makes the city what it is.
Right.
And I would just tell you that Cleveland is a big city, but a small town. We really have small town values, but it is a big city. I can tell you about the great assets that we have, the waterfront. It's easy to navigate. We have 3 major sports teams, the Browns, the Guardians, as well as the Cleveland Cavaliers. We also have the greatest orchestra, one of the highest ranked orchestras in the world. We have a great theater district that is the largest theater district outside of New York. But just like the council president McIver said, it's the people. The people of Cleveland are tenacious. The people of Cleveland have that Midwest value, and you can rest assured when you walk down the street, somebody's going to say hello and greet you and actually try to help you along your way.
Those are very good answers. It was funny, we caught the tail end as we were coming back from the green room of the panel right before us, and I was trying to catch, did she say they have pothole detection software? Where was that at when I worked for the city? Wait a minute, hold on.
Sign us up.
Yeah, I got to find her wherever she's at.
I was like, wait a minute, did I hear that right? I got to catch the replay on this one. So now we're really going to get into it, okay? So we all know this. I served the mayor for 16 years. I actually was hired by a mayor when I first started working for the city. And we know, and this is a compliment, mayors do get a lot of the credit. They get the credit, they get to have those press conferences and take the questions and show up first at the ribbon cuttings. But we all know that they get to do the credit. They take the credit, they set the initiatives, but council members also drive initiatives as well. We all know that the power comes from the people, which is your council person, we always say is the closest person to the people. I always ask this question whenever I'm speaking. Do you know who your council person is? Do you know who your state rep is? If you don't know who your council person is, then start day one, you're gonna have issues. You need to know who your council person is. That's the person elected to be closest to the people. But a lot of times you don't get the credit, or if you do get the credit, you started an initiative, you don't get the shine. I'm sure you both have examples of something that you've worked on where it was a council-led initiative, whether it was you or your colleagues, or it was something that you yourself brought back from a League of Cities conference, or you went out and you saw that one of your peers was doing something and you brought it back to your cities. Can you give us an example of one of those times when you may have done something and you may not have gotten that shine and your mayor did? Let's start with you, Council President Griffin.
Well, let me say this. Politics is a business that you have to share credit. And that's on both sides. You have to make sure that everybody feels like they're a part of it, especially the community and the people, which is why community engagement is so important. And I could tell you that we built one of the largest coalitions to deal with the lead crisis in the city of Cleveland. And I was able to secure $50 million from the Cleveland Clinic, which is a major stakeholder, second-ranked hospital in the entire United States, only after the Mayo Clinic. We also raised about $17 million. However, we did most of that with the former mayor, who I happened to work with before I became a council person, and actually his team. However, it happened during a transition. So a new mayor came in, and what I did is exactly like I just started off. How do we share credit? How do we work, even though it was predominantly led by council and those things, but here's an incoming mayor, and what I did is I said, hey, how can we work together to give you your first win? How can we work together to say we're going to share the credit on this? And that's the type of thing you have to do, because people want to see the administrative side and the legislative side work together, because it restores confidence in the city.
So I would definitely agree with President Griffin. I mean, it's definitely a collaboration. I have to say that I have a very unique situation, because in my city with my amazing mayor, we all work together. And that's hard to believe sometimes in many of our different cities, but we have a one-track kind of vision mindset where we meet about what the goals and the initiatives are, and then we all work together to get them done. Because most of everything that the mayor or administration is doing, they can't do without a council. I mean, President Griffin mentioned lead service lines. Well, in the city of Newark, we actually changed over 20,000 lead service lines in 20 months during COVID. And that cost us $120 million, and we did that on private properties. So we had to change legislation and all of those things that happen. It couldn't happen without the city council. So of course, all the time, I always laugh when they talk about credit and, getting a shine. And I'm like, I just feel like all the time you can even look for the shine, because at the end of the day, the work has to be done. And while you're not always getting the credit, I mean, we had Vice President Kamala Harris come to the city of Newark and basically praise us for the good job we did with the lead service line just when Joe Biden was getting into office and talking about infrastructure, right? We had already bonded our $120 million, and like then DC's like, okay, we have money, we're going to help cities. But at the same time, she came and we all were there to celebrate it. And of course, our mayor was at the forefront of that. But at the same time, just knowing that you did the work, and if you really centered in the right place, then the credit is already there for you, despite getting the news article or, getting the praise about it. But we really worked together in the city of Newark, because like President Griffin said, you have to work together, like being strong with the administration and the legislative part of the city. It's really what makes the city strong and have faith in the leadership altogether.
And you both touched on something that I think is very, very important. When Mayor Jackson first came into office, and I was a city clerk, so I went from, we in Cleveland, we say we worked on both sides of the hall, right? Council President Griffin actually was an administrator, and now he's a legislative. And there's something to that, because it yields about experience. A lot of times it's easy to give a speech and go out and, say and look like you know what you're doing. You actually have to know how to do the work too. And I'm sure Newark is like Cleveland, where you have to put in the work. You have to know what you're doing. You have to get along. You have to know how things operate. Mayor Jackson used to say this, and Blaine knows this, that public service is an honorable profession, right? And I think that it was his work as a councilman and then council president, understanding the community from the ground up, that made him a successful mayor. And so you all know this as well, right? You have to put that work in. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Can you give an example of, like, what's your day like? Because, and the reason why I'm asking that is, let me explain. They're council people, which means they represent either a neighborhood or a ward, which means we're talking, how many residents reside in your?
In Newark, we have about 315,000 residents.
Okay, and in Cleveland?
372,364 people.
And then in your respective districts and wards?
In my respective district, I have about 20 to 30,000 residents.
Okay, and Blaine?
25,000 residents. However, I also have another mini city with the Cleveland Clinic and the Eds and Meds, which is like 50,000 people.
Right. So the reason why I did that is because they represent their own districts. Then on top of that, they are council presidents. How many members are there in your city council?
In the city of Newark, we have 9 council members, 5 ward council members, because we're split in wards in the city of Newark. There are 5, and then we have 4 at-large council members.
And
17 council members, and those 17 council members convene after every election and select a council president, which they chose me.
And so that's why I'm asking, what's their day like? Because in addition to having to deal with the day-to-day complaints from their favorite residents, they also have to govern an entire legislative body. So I'm going to throw this one out to Council President Griffin. Your council just recessed on Monday. That meant Monday you had a long legislative day. Give us an example of your day from council to dealing with your constituents, and then Council President McIver will come to you as well.
That's actually an interesting question. I'm gonna try to answer it as quick as possible. I have 3 different constituencies. I have, number 1, the Ward 6 neighborhood that I represent. Number 2, I have the council colleagues that I have the privilege of leading. And then number 3, I pretty much work closely with the staff, even though I do have a clerk that runs day to day. Most of the decisions of the office are ratified or either made by me. So you look at like 3 different constituencies. So number 1, you got to take care of home first. So I got to make sure that I start out every day taking care of constituency calls, which is what I was doing today. Then you have to look at the legislative things that you need to do, and you have to intimately understand the policy issues that's coming before us. I will turn it over to the council president, but I tell everybody the beauty about being a council person is you don't have to be an expert at everything. I mean, an expert at one thing, like so many of the people you heard today, but you do have to know a little bit about everything.
So if Councilman Griffin has 3, I have 4, because my 4th is literally when you become council president, every ward is your priority.
That's right.
I used to, when I first got into office in 2018, I was like, oh, Central Ward, and if it's not Central Ward, I don't know, and then when I became council president in July, it was like, okay, I'm calling from all the way down in the east, I'm in the north, hola, como está, it became everything for me. And so I'm like, okay, have you called your ward council person, what's going on? So you become everything to everybody, and everyone wants you to come to their events, and if you say no, it's like the end of the world. So you're literally running, someone laughed about that, it's the truth, literally you're running from sun up to sundown and beyond sundown. And in the city of Newark, we literally, it's truly unbelievable about how many events and things, which I'm sure it's like that in other cities, of how much you have to run and go to all the time. And so it's a lot of work. Council members are part-timers in the city of Newark, which is kind of like a joke. I don't know how it is in Cleveland, but they're part-timers, and and most of them have another career, or they have another job that they're doing. They didn't all just wake up and birth into being a council person. And so at the end of the day, you're doing that too, plus being a council person. It's a lot of work.
And I got to say, Chief, just to tell you about, having that, what the council president just said, that is like minimum wage that if you look at the hours that we put in versus what we get paid, it's almost like you averages out to be minimum wage.
A living wage, though, right?
A living wage.
Okay, so based on what you heard today, we had some phenomenal presentations today, right? And heard a lot of great things, whether it's economic development, redeveloping the port. We have a port. We were having a conversation last night about an airport on the lakefront that we have one on, and having dynamic discussions around that. You play a role in economic development. You play a role in tourism. You play a role in representing your cities as well. You want to talk about that a little bit? What's your role in being the face of tourism as well? Not just your mayors, not just your other colleagues, but you play that role too as a council president. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
So I would just say we have a lot of bids and SIDs, of business districts, and our tourism of bid and SID that kind of helps with kind of developing like what we're bringing to the city of Newark, what's helping. I think a lot of the conversation has changed after COVID. I mean, we don't have the Cleveland Cavaliers, but we do have the Devils and other performing arts and things of that nature in the city. But you have to promote that, right? You have to get out there. You have to be at the forefront of these conversations and tables to make sure that, you know, the Visitors Bureau is doing everything, touching all bases. You have to go out there and be advocating to bring things back to the city. You have to get residents involved. You have to think about small businesses, and all of that comes into work of that. So it's a lot of work, but at the same time is necessary. So, you know, to me, my goal around just tourism, just in one little piece of section of economic development, that is the goal that I play of sitting on and running the bid and sit for tourism and working with our hotels and different partners. We have the MTV Music Awards coming back to the Prudential Center, and so even the work of that, getting that together, you know, drawing that out, picking small businesses to be a part of that. You know, a lot of times, not to take up too much time, big things come to our cities, and if we just let the big things come and the big corporations come and run that, they'll leave the rest of the city out of it.
Right.
And that becomes your job, making sure that the rest of the city is involved, all of the businesses, all of the organizations, the free tickets to kids from, you know, the neighborhoods. All of that becomes your job. So that's my role in playing
That's
that.
a good answer.
And I would just tell you that, number one, you have to know who you're there to represent. And a lot of times you have to be a master translator to help the people of the community understand why these investments are a good return on their investment for taxpayer dollars. Case in point, we just got back from Ireland because we just put together an international flight from Dublin and Cleveland. And we went over there basically to sell the city. We're open for business. We're here to do what we, you know, to really attract businesses to Cleveland. And we also want to attract tourism. But in addition to that, it's just like Council President McIver just said, it is very critical to make sure that the community benefits from whenever this happens. And we just passed sweeping legislation on Monday with a community benefits ordinance to make sure that whenever we spend taxpayer dollars, that the entire community will benefit from it.
Oh, let me get a copy of that.
Well, but you know what? It's funny. It's funny that he mentioned that because it wasn't without controversy.
Very controversial.
It was not. It's not without controversy. I mean, you had the business community, which we love. We have, I believe, our Chamber of Commerce is one of the largest in the nation, if not the largest. The
largest
Greater
and the
Cleveland
oldest.
Partnership, and they had to represent their constituency too. So there were some issues with it. It wasn't without controversy, and it was started actually under Mayor Jackson, who did the first community benefits agreement. They just made it legislation, so now it's our local law.
Right.
So we only have a few more minutes left, and I mean, yes, cities are wonderful, and we do great things, and we are fantastic, and all that good stuff. But there's some things that's happening in the country right now that really are falling at both of your doorsteps, right? So I'm gonna try to do a quick lightning round, and I'm just gonna throw out some words, and I'd like you to respond to a couple of them. Speaking of controversial, participatory budgeting.
I don't think it's a good policy. I think that it's something that we have representative government already, and it has it sounds like it's democratic, but we already have a democratic policy that is elective representation.
Ditto.
Okay. Civic/resident engagement.
Very important. I mean, you can't get anything done. That's most of your job, 150% trying to engage people. You have to go to people's doorsteps to say, be engaged, be a part of this. Come on. So you definitely important.
Essential. You got to make sure you involve people in order to be successful.
Okay. Low urban voter turnout.
I think that's a multitude of things that we could spend a whole session talking about, but I would tell you that people have lost confidence in government, and not just because of the local tone and tenor, but because of the national tone and tenor and the bipartisanship that we see and the polarization that we see in politics.
Not exciting. When the people aren't excited, they're not coming out to vote.
Mm-hmm. Woke.
I always say this to my young people. You know, they say, stay woke. Well, stay woke and stay informed too. I need you to do more than being woke and wake, be informed as well.
We're trying to run a city, And sometimes when you're running a city, you can't get so caught up into your emotions and into your beliefs that you can't compromise and that you can't bring in revenue and work with people to make the city run.
I have a saying, I won't say it the way I always say it, but I joke and say, sometimes we can be so woke we're getting slept on. And so we need to pay attention. Lastly, policing in urban cities.
It's time to think outside of the box. I think we are doing that. We spent a lot of time talking about it at National League of Cities in the city of Newark, and we've come to this during the time of the George Floyd situation. People were yelling, defund the police, defund the police. And we actually did do some reconstruction to our police budget, but to create basically a community-based organization piece of it, we created an office called Office of Violence Prevention and engaged a lot of street organizations to help fight crime, which is a way we kind of talk about it in Newark as reimagining public safety. We can't keep doing the same thing that we've been doing forever with just more police, police, lock up. It doesn't work. So reimagining public safety.
Blaine, you get the last.
Culture. Have to change culture. Have to put the culture back into the community. The police don't create the culture. The community creates the culture. The police need to follow.
All right. And with that, we are out of time. Thank you.